Well, I want to welcome everybody to another installment of Conversations with Willie about permaculture and transition and all kinds of good stuff. I happened to run into Christian Shearer today, quite by accident, but I'm welcome, Christian. I want you to introduce yourself, sir, and tell us what you're doing and what your values are.
Huh. So thanks a lot, Willie. It's my pleasure to be here talking to you. Um, I am a permaculture teacher, permaculture designer. I'm the founder of the Panya Project in northern Thailand. About 6 years ago, some friends of mine and I put money together to start a project. We had no idea where it would go, but we knew that it would bring something of more value to our lives. Really, at that time, I had the most um, um, just very small understanding of what permaculture was, and it was through that project that I've really learned and developed my understanding and really come to learn a lot from it. Yeah.
Hmm. What is your opinion about the all the talk about the crash and the transition and the meltdown and everything else? How do you approach the future?
Yeah, I'll tell you, one thing I'm pretty good at is being kind of, I wouldn't say without an opinion, but with that, I'm able to move forward looking at a whole bunch of different perspectives. So from my perspective, which is trying to look at all these perspectives, I see if there's a big economic crash or something happens again with huge recession or depression, I'd like to be able to grow my own food and understand a lot about sustainability and interacting with the climate around me. If there is further hostilities with terrorists or intergovernmental conflict which causes war and other things, I'd like to know how to grow my own food and be able to live sustainably and interact with my local environment. If there is further degradation of our environmental surroundings and climate change continues on its path and all that stuff, I'd like to know how to grow my own food and live within my local environment. So, and there's a whole bunch more to add to that list. Peak oil fears, um, um, all sorts of other stuff that add onto that. The price of food going through the roof, all these things coming to head. To me, the same answer comes connecting with my community, knowing how to grow my own food, being self-reliant and community sufficient, understanding my local ecology is the answer to all. So which one of those things will go down, or if any of them will go down, I don't know. Hey, and if none of them go down, I like to know how to grow my own food and connect with my local economy and my local community. So
Right.
I'm not placing a bet that I'm going to lose on here.
I appreciate that. So you're espousing a localization philosophy with your local community. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean it's not much of a new idea. I can't take claim for any of these ideas myself. I've been learning these ideas through a lot of the permaculture community and a lot of the media that I've been choosing to partake in. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. There's one thing for me that's a big additional factor to all this is that by living in this way actually brings a higher quality of life. It's not. I don't feel that we need to sacrifice what we have. I don't feel like we need to give up what we love in life to be able to help the planet to survive, to be able to help our communities to be healthy. Actually, we make choices that actually bring us a higher connection to what we love in life and connection to our family, to our communities, to our food. And our lives will actually improve quite a bit and the quality of that goes up. This, for me, is one of the keys for bringing this kind of environmental permaculture revolution into the mainstream, is helping people to see that um, spending a lot of time in the garden, having animals, growing trees, riding a bicycle, teaching your own children what you want them to know, all of this stuff is not a sacrifice for the good of the whole. It's actually a brings a higher quality of life to our own beings.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I can see is that permaculture could be a new social movement and a new social template for the planet. It seems like that's what you're describing here.
Sure, and that's for me really the beauty of it. I mean, someone once said, if you want them to join you, you got to make sure you're having more fun than they are. And I think permaculture is doing a pretty good job of that. You know, I believe as a whole, the community of permaculture people, I mean, I'm making a broad generalization here, but I think we enjoy our day-to-day lives to a greater degree than a lot of the people who are working mainstream jobs and having careers. I don't believe that the people who are practicing permaculture and doing homesteading and getting out in the garden for a lot of time and growing a lot of their own food and choosing to eat local, they're not taking a hit in their quality of life for the better of all society and for the environment as a whole. They're choosing things that actually make themselves more healthy, actually allow them to spend more time with their children. They spend less time in front of a electronic screen. They spend less time in a car. I think we're choosing something that really brings more joy into our lives, and I think people in the greater society, everyone wants to have more joy in their life, I believe. So if we can somehow not preach this, but show by example that I'm having a good time, even while maybe the economy is falling apart. Yeah, people will jump on board pretty quick.
So what is your typical student like coming into your class? What sort of perspectives do they have that you might encounter and change and teach them something new as a whole?
Right. Well, actually, it's fairly easy for me to not describe my typical student, but at least one quality of my typical student, which is that they're just on the brink of major change. Most people who are coming to permaculture courses are, just thinking about like shifting their career to something more interesting, or wanting to grow more food at home, or wanting to connect to their local systems to a greater degree. They're just thinking about maybe buying some land and trying to see if they can produce more of their own sustenance from their own land. And really, all of those things mark them being on the brink, or them being on the edge, as we like to say in permaculture, ready to kind of take a delve into some other different way of being. And the permaculture course, I believe, the 72 hours of coursework really gives them all this stuff, all this information, all this practice, all this inspiration for saying, you can do it. There's a lot of us out there that are doing it. And go for it. You can be really creative. You can be successful in most of the terms of what you think successful is, whether that's having more time for your family, whether that's being really healthy, whether that's connecting and having a lot of fun with your local communities, or whether that's even making a good income from a land-based operation. We give them skills, ideas, understanding that help them to launch into that.
You have already been exposed to some of the ideas that I'm working on around permaculture, with permaculture. The sacred is one. I'd like to talk first, though, about the new mythology surrounding permaculture, the new stories. And if you can tell me what the new symbols are in permaculture, that'd be super.
What the new symbols are in permaculture?
Yeah.
Well, kind of just bridging off what I was just talking about, I would say a smile is one of the first symbols that should be put out there, because permaculture is a lot of work. This is one thing I don't want anyone to be misconstruing about permaculture. People say it's the lazy man's way of farming. Well, I don't know very many permaculture people who just spend a lot of time sitting on a hammock. Where that comes from is the idea that for the time that you put in, for the effort you put in, for the money you put in, you get a lot more out. That's true. But you still can spend, basically full time working on your permaculture site. But you can also do it with a smile, because someone's not at the end of the day saying, "Hey, good job. You made $10 an hour now working this job." No, that would take all the meaning out of it. We're working on this stuff knowing that we're on the most local of levels making an impact, where our own bodies are benefiting, our families are benefiting, our own local communities and economies are benefiting, and the global ecosystem is benefiting. So I go about my work a lot of the time with a smile, if not on my face, in my heart. So smile would be a good symbol that should go along with permaculture.
Okay, that's fair. It's getting there. You could consider the soil. You could consider a shovel. You could consider what do you call those? Cob huts or cob stoves.
Sure.
These are all fodder, new symbologies for this movement, and I'm trying to get at what those are so I can write stories to it.
Yeah. Well, another one that comes to mind, a couple more that comes to mind is one I think more common is the tree, the image of the tree with the roots going down to the soil. Mm-hmm. There's much more to it than we can see on the surface. We see just half of the story, or maybe not even half of the story, with the stuff that's on the surface of the soil. And that's kind of how our world is. When you go out in society and you're walking through town and you see people walking by, buying the groceries or whatever it might be, you're only seeing part of the story that's happening there. There's so much more beneath the soil there that is true for those people. If you can reach down and understand their roots, where they're coming from, what they sink their nourishment into, and how they really grow their green foliage, understanding a lot more about them. And in permaculture, we're really trying to go a little deeper like that, understand all of these different levels of the human being, of our communities, and of the global ecology.
So, Christian, who is opposed to permaculture?
Who is opposed to it?
That's not a trick question, because I've gotten answers to that.
Right. Who is opposed to permaculture? Well, the only name that comes to mind is Monsanto.
Yeah, I got that.
So, and not only that company, but I would say the powers that be, the money systems that are the economies, the economics of the world are opposed. Anyone who believes that raising the GDP is the best way to bring happiness to our people would probably be somewhat fundamentally opposed to the idea of permaculture and self-reliance and self-sufficiency and local economies and those things. It doesn't help the GDP. Permaculture does not help GDP.
Bummer.
Yeah. Monsanto is I'm sure threatened by the growing popularity of permaculture. The permaculture is growing on an exponential curve right now, and I'm sure Monsanto has at least one speck of an eyeball on that movement. And they don't want people to grow their own food and to become more self-reliant and become healthier in their societies. So those are the only, I can't think of individual people, but I can think of systems that would be opposed.
So are you sensing that we need to bring permaculture into City Hall, into politics, and influence the politics of the country? Do we need to get out of nature and into the back rooms? How do you see that?
Well, yeah, I think that's really helpful. There's a lot of beautiful people doing that work. That's not my personal calling. I don't feel myself thriving doing bureaucratic work. But I'm very thankful that I'm in an alliance with a lot of people who do that work. Working the paperwork, getting through the bureaucracy, trying to pass some laws that allow us to use, from things as simple as composting toilets and living roofs and cob walls to passing laws that maybe will someday stop us from looking at the GDP as the primary indicator of human happiness.
Right. Okay, so you're not running for mayor anytime soon then?
No, I'm not running for mayor. Nope. Thanks for the nomination, but yeah.
Well, let's go to perhaps the most controversial subject, and that's what I'm working on primarily, and that's bringing sacred back to Mollison, or just adding sacred to permaculture in general. I understand that you want to keep it separate,
Right.
and you understand that I want to attach it.
Uh-huh.
And so, tell me again for the viewers your perspective on that.
I think I follow basically along the same philosophy that Mollison and Holmgren put out with permaculture. Trying to keep permaculture separate from, as you say, the sacred or the metaphysical or the religious aspects of it. And in fact, in our own personal lives, when we're in the garden, I'm not saying they should be separate. What I'm saying is that on paper, as a science, as permaculture, the kind of scientific realm, we should keep it separate, because we want organizations like the United Nations, like the United States government, like the Palestinian government, like the Iraqi government, like the South African government, or any NGO group, whatever, to be able to adopt permaculture without it bringing any sort of stigma or attached belief system with it that might turn off another group. So my personal belief with this is that having it be separated from the spiritual, from the sacred, if you will, and I hope I'm not getting you wrong here, is valuable in that it can help to reach to a lot of those people who might otherwise be turned off if it carried with it some of these kind of mystical, magical, spiritual, religious, and I don't mean any of those in negative ways, beliefs along with it.
Mm. Do you not think that nature is inherently sacred, though?
Yeah, I absolutely do. So
Okay,
actually involved, and this is where I might take the other angle, in each one of my permaculture design courses, as an evening lesson, and I tell the students this is not in the curriculum, this is not part of the 72 hours, and you're not required to come to this lesson. I do an evening of a broader perspective. So I do something I call an introduction to integral theory, and I kind of talk about some of the ideas of Ken Wilber and integrating all these different philosophies into one philosophy that works for me. And in that lesson, I kind of give a map of all things in the universe, and that's both internal things like love and faith and truth and virtue and values and morals and ethics, and also external things like trees and the environment and the physical, and I talk about my personal experience of those things, and I also talk about the societal experience of those things, and I say, none of these lines really exist, but for the sake of us understanding, it's useful to have a map of the territory. So permaculture goes into a certain section of this, into the external collective realm of this map, and it's one of the most useful and informed pieces of that realm that I know of, and it should be integrally connected from this larger realm to some of these other really valuable tools, like nonviolent communication, like eco-counseling, like meditation, like organic food and the consumption of really good nourishment for my body, like aerobic exercise. All of those things are integral parts of the pie to me that forms kind of my vision of the world, and my religious, sacred, spiritual beliefs fit into that as well, and are connected to all the others. So when I'm in the garden, I could say practicing permaculture, I certainly am connected to that garden with my heart and my spiritual self at the same time as I am connected through my lenses of permaculture.
Nice. Well, I wanted to give you a sense of my perspective on the class I'm teaching. I'm offering people an opportunity to explore their own sacred philosophy. I'm not espousing one or coming down from the top down to tell them what sacred is. So I'm careful about giving them the space to explore the topic. And I'm hopeful that people will see a sense of the sacred as it intertwines and integrates with their permaculture work, because again, my sense of that is that permaculture will be much greater and much more impactful with this combined sacred science and with just the science. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I really appreciate and honor that vision. I think that's some really important work can be done in our world. I definitely think integrating different realms in workshops and teachings and stuff is really valuable to humans on this planet. So I fully give you my blessing and hope that course goes over really well and that people really get a lot in their hearts from that teaching.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Do you have any notion about permaculture being a revolution in the country and the world? Is it called a revolution in your place?
Yeah, absolutely. I really value that word and what it kind of means.
Really? Are you an old hippie?
You know, I'm not old, and I don't know if I'm a hippie. I do really appreciate peace and love. So maybe some people would put me in that category. Yeah, revolution. I think that permaculture is definitely could be referred to as a revolution in lots of ways. One is it's gaining lots of people. It's gaining lots of momentum. There's lots of people moving toward the idea of permaculture and the practices around it. The other is that the word revolution implies revolving and evolving all in that. And I can see us re-evolving in the sense that we're coming back to a lot of the practices that may have been an integrated part of people's lives in the past. And we're evolving in the sense that we're carrying with it a lot of the knowledge and newfound understanding that science and the Enlightenment era has given us, and bringing it with us on that revolutionary path. So anything we create out of this will not be going back to a way of the past, but we'll be moving forward to something that integrates and combines a lot of what we've understood from the teachings of science and the whole Enlightenment period and industrial age and communication age as we've seen it now.
Excellent. Well, Christian Shearer, I appreciate your time, my friend. I'm going to put you up into the social media world and share your thoughts. And I'll send out a prayer to the Panya Project. It sounds like a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. If anyone's interested in checking out our courses, we're hosting permaculture design courses as well as natural building courses throughout the year. www.panyaproject.org. We do bring a lot of that other realm, into our lives at Panya. So if people are interested in the physical application of permaculture as well as really fully enjoying it and valuing it for what it is on a bigger sense, I think you'll enjoy your time at Panya.
Okay, I'll check it out again, sir. Have a good day up there.
Great. Nice talking to you, Willie. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.